You know people who should be successful, but what? They're not successful. Why?
So that's his why buy. But what is he afraid of?
My personal style of education, but still entertain them, bring them along with stories, right?
If you're a real man, what do? I'm not the only one.
You can't wait to tell your spouse. You can't wait to tell your colleague. You can't wait to go to work and tell somebody. And you're like, oh my God, I can't wait. So what happened?
If you haven't seen my TV show, you should get cable. That's what you need to do.
From doing a TV show to doing corporate events, I've been so lucky to connect with many passionate entrepreneurs worldwide.
What I've learned from a business perspective.
Because this is the formula for success, no matter who you talk to. Attitude will drive your behavior. Would you agree? And your behavior will drive your consequences every single time.
We got the concept. Okay, we got the concept. We got the equipment, right? We got the brand. You guys got that. And then again, we got the content that we create. That's the easy part. This is the big one, the big C, which is the commitment.
What should you do? That's right. All right. 10 Xers. Do not fail me. True test. Here it comes.
There's skill, and then there's will. Listen to what I'm saying. There is skill, and then there is will. And here's the interesting thing. I know a lot of people who have a lot of skill, but have no what? Will, right? You ever look at somebody who's successful, and you say, why them? Why not you? Yes, okay, that's me too.
You have more control, but your costs are also going to be what? Higher.
Now, here's where some of the magic is starting to kick in.
You can talk to any CEO in the B2B business, any CEO. You walk into his office and they only care about 3 things. People too. Yeah, he with the suit, put it up. There you go. I hope you can see this. I'll try to draw big. Let's pretend for a moment that I had 7 territories. You remember I wrote that out? Yes or no? Boom. Territory 2, territory 3, all the way to territory number what? 7. So now I've segmented my market.
So content is going to start being created by machines. And I'm telling you right now that those people, you guys, the content creators that connect with people are the ones that are going to win. Some people think, well, it won't work for my industry. Really? It'll work for any industry. Trust me. The majority of the time when we're looking to fix something, repair something, or learn something, where do we go? YouTube. We don't even want to read anymore. We go to YouTube. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong.
When you're doing your thing, beautiful things begin to happen. It's like the law of attraction kicks in. You know what I mean? It's almost like you're in line with the universe. Everything works. And when you do your thing, everybody gets an automatic MBA, which stands for what? Mega Bank Account Money. Are you with me? So we don't want to do a thing. We want to do a what? Beautiful.
All right, put it all together for Victor Antonio. Here we go.
All right, there we go. I'm not here to mess around. You ready to learn? Yes or no?
That's how it works in today's market. Whether it's B2B or B2C, you see the similar pattern. How do you just, in other words, say you gotta start doing these things, pushing them, but also encouraging them. Oh, look at this. This is where it gets, dude, this is like so interactive with audiences, man. Can you imagine this with your customers? Check this out. Now, what does all this have to do with selling? It has everything to do with selling.
All right, what's happening, people? Thank you for joining me for another live stream, Sales After Dark. Tonight's topic is decision fatigue. So I'm super excited about this subject. Let me push out here to see if we got any comments coming in. Let me see who we got on here. Uncle John is in the house. Let me put that up there. Say hi to a few people. VA is my man, the True Value Merchant. I am very excited to acquire another mental candy to use to my clients, man. It's all about mental candy. Man, Reckless Civics. Dude, I even love that, man. Reckless Civic. I love it, man. And my man, Jay, who we just had a great discussion with about the topic and other things on copywriting and marketing. Hope you enjoyed the conversation, Jay, because I did. I will send you the recording, by the way. And my girl, CF Jackson. Greeting, Victor. Ready for tonight's session? I'm on tonight. Ready. And there she is, my girl, Mia Knox. I got your new book. All right. Value. There it is, right there. Mastering the Upsell. I'm glad you got it, Mia. Thank you very much. And I think I got it. And by the way, tonight's topic is going to be interesting on fatigue. So I think this, again, all these strategies are very tactical. So let me give you a full screen of what we've done so far. We've talked about freemium. We've talked about, again, multiple options. We've talked about decoys, the endowment effect, and today it's all about decision fatigue. This one's going to be different. It's going to be different. I'm telling you right now. And there's the book again. If you haven't bought it, why haven't you bought it? We've made it, as they say, very affordable. A lot of people are actually getting the actual paperback, which is kind of cool. So I'm happy about that. So I'm really happy with the sales results thus far. Got a few more people jumping in. Let me see. We got Kent Carla. Hello, everyone from Wicked Code, Chicago. Ooh, man. My sister called me earlier today. She said, it is cold. I got Mastering the Upsell delivered a couple of days ago. Man, thank you. Enjoying it so far. It's a smooth, easy read. That's the only way I write. I'm not a Pulitzer Prize writer, so I'm not very technical. So I take pride in my simplicity when I write. So thank you for buying it. Stay warm, my man. Stay warm. Rogelio Jacinto from Salinas, California. Rogelio, glad to have you on here, man. Reckless Civic, you back again. Do you have any tips on the home repair service industry? You know, we're going to talk about something similar to home service in this session. So there's so much stuff to cover. But tonight's topic is decision fatigue, and you'll be able to tie it into your industry. You'll see what I'm talking about. And so, Jay, again, Mastering the Upsell, easy to digest. It's an easy decision, no fatigue while reading. Very clever. Camless, Sawan, good morning to you. Good evening on this side. Arvin Garcia, always a pleasure to see you here, man. Mike Jensen, what's up? Waiting on my book, looking forward to it, man. Oh, I'm glad you're getting it. Thank you very much. So again, if you haven't bought it, go ahead and buy it. And we'll be covering the book over the next few weeks. And so what I wanted to do is, with the book, going through it, I wanted to cover each chapter. That's very tactical. But hopefully through these live streams, I'm giving you just a little more flavor than what you can find in the book. You know, sometimes you read something, but it just doesn't kind of transmit the flavor. So anyway, are you ready? Because I'm about to go here. Let's get into it. I think I got most of the comments for now. So let's talk about decision fatigue. So decision fatigue, here's the definition. It's boring. The deteriorating quality of decision making. I mean, that's like a long title, isn't it? Quality of decisions you make after a long period of decision making. Have you ever had that happen to you? It's like you're making so many decisions that you're tired of making decisions, you know, and we've all been through that where we just simply get tired. And if you look at a graph of what this is, it's almost like if on the vertical axis you have quality of decisions, and I'll go full screen so you guys can see this, right? And what happens is if you have quality of decisions here, and then at the bottom you have the number of decisions, what begins to happen is that initially your quality of decision making is pretty good, but over time it begins to what? Just deteriorate. In other words, after a while, you just make poor decisions. And a lot of people somewhere here just say, you know what, I'm tired of making decisions. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Let's just buy it. If you've ever bought something with a lot of moving pieces or something that's very technical, like a computer, too many specifications, too many options, a camera, too many features, too many options, you just go, you know what? Let's just give me the basic camera, give me a good lens, and give me a bag to put it in. I'm done. That's decision fatigue. People get there when they just can't think anymore. And it has a lot to do with, one, being tired. Two, there's something called cognitive loading, too many things to think about. And the third part, and I've read this in many studies, is it's like when you're hungry. When your blood sugar is really low, you even have a harder time making decisions. Now, I'm going to tie this into sales, but allow me to give you an example of how decision fatigue not only works, but how it can impact your money, or in this case, your life. So I found this study. Now, this study is not in the book, so this is kind of the supplemental stuff here. And it was interesting. It was a study done by the New York Times, and what they wanted to understand was decision fatigue. And they looked at the court system. And what they found was something interesting. They analyzed over 1,100 cases, right? 1,100 parole decisions. So said another way, these are folks who are, let me get rid of this right here so you can see that. So in other words, there's folks who are in jail, right? And then they're coming up for parole. Parole means that they can give you an option of letting you go with conditions or sending you back to jail. Again, parole with conditions, they let you go or they send you back to jail. And what they found is that timing was the primary indicator of whether or not a parole was approved. And again, when you get approved for parole means you don't have to go back to jail, you can leave the jail, but there's some conditions. So in other words, if you do something wrong again, you go back to jail. So a lot of people just want to get paroled out. And here's what they found. The first they found is that prisoners who had an early scheduled appointment with the judge received parole, the ability to leave, right, around 70% of the time. Think about that. 70% of the cases who came in front of the judge says, you know what, I'm going to give you parole, which means, again, I'll let you go home with conditions. And when they looked at later on during the day, here's what they found. That prisoners with later parole hearings, like later on during the day, less than 10% of the people were actually given parole, which means 90% were sent back to jail. Now, what's happening here? What's happening is that people are getting tired. The judge is getting tired of making decisions. And when you get mentally tired, you become less patient. And then you just make faster decisions. One could argue you make bad decisions, right? Not very well thought out. And we've all been there. We're tired. We make bad decisions. And again, the patience factor isn't there. The sympathetic or empathy factor isn't there. And so when we're tired, we just make bad decisions, which is why when you're presenting a product or a service and you're doing a presentation, if you overwhelm people with too much information, they get fatigued. Again, cognitive loading. That's the phrase. Let me just write it out. I want you guys to get this. It's called cognitive loading. And basically that means, cognitive loading means, it means too much information. It's like, my brain hurts, right? Our job is always to simplify the information so people don't have to overthink the information. So that's kind of setting up why decisions are made in such ways. In other words, why poor decisions are made. In this case, because the judge is tired in the afternoon, let's say, they're less patient, less tolerant. You got it, right? Now, let's move on to a sales example, a real sales example of how decision fatigue can impact your selling, but more importantly, the subject of this live stream, your upselling ability. So this is a true story. This is a company called Moorhead Pools, and they're out of Canada. And I met the CEO, the owner rather, of the company, and we had this discussion about, upselling, and we got on the subject of, upselling, pool equipment. And he said, Victor, I got a story for you. And I said, what's your story? He says, here's my story, Victor. He said, here's my story. He says, I was selling a pool, right? I was selling a pool for $80,000. That was the original design, right? And the more I talked to the customer and presented different options, notice I said presented different options. So if you missed the other live streams or in the book, go to the earlier chapter on options, this is what he's talking about. So what happened was he starts presenting different options, and again, just presenting the options, framing it the right way. Look what he did. He upsold them to $120,000. From $80,000 to $120,000. I mean, that's a 50% upsell rate. 50% upsell rate. And his name is Michael, and Michael was super happy. Wouldn't you be if you just upsold somebody on 50%? You'd be like, this is great. And he was happy. And so he sold the pool, closed the deal, signed the contract. He's like, yes, 50% increase on the upsell, money in the bank, life is good, right? Then something happened. Something tragic happened, right? A couple of months later, he was talking to his friend who has another business. They have a patio furniture business. And I guess they were on this conversation about pools they were building, and they touched on this customer. And the gentleman who owned the patio company said, yeah, she came in here and she bought an additional $30,000 of patio equipment. Now, Michael, Moorhead Pools, they sell patio equipment too. And he's thinking to himself, well, why didn't she buy that from me? Did I stop selling too early? Why didn't she buy from me? And we concluded that what happened is, as she or he was making decisions about the pool, I think it was a she, was making decisions about the pool, they went from 80,000, more conversation. They upsold them by another $40,000. The person just said, I'm done making decisions. Just let's go ahead and build this. And then some time passed, and then that person was able to make another decision, and that's why they bought another $30,000. And that led to our conversation, and this is where it really gets good, is that we started talking about this effect. And so what we said, well, what is happening? And I drew this graph out. I created this graph. Here's what's happening. Decision fatigue is how tired you get. That's this right here, how tired you get, right? Over time. And as you're talking to people, they're starting to get more fatigued, right? And they finally say, you know what? We're just going to go with that pool. That's it. Final decision, let's just go with that $120,000. Then, once you make that decision, or she made the decision for $120,000, then you need to allow a recovery time. In other words, a time where the person can just go, decompress and absorb what they've just done. We've all done this. We've all made a big decision. Let's buy this. You've made this big decision, and then you don't want to make a decision for another month or two, right? That's the recovery time. So then, what might have happened is when the person recovered, notice they're right here, they're not as fatigued. Their fatigue dropped down to that point right there. Their fatigue dropped. Then now they were ready to make a new decision, and that's when the patio furniture was sold. Now, so when we talked about this problem, Michael and I, we were like, okay, so we need to figure out how do we win that business? If we understand decision fatigue, how do we win that business? And what we came up with was kind of what you're seeing here. And that is, let's look at this. And he said, what we're going to start doing, let me move over here. What we're going to start doing is 30 days before completion, the CRM will trigger this right here. What does that mean? Within the CRM, he's going to now start programming that 30 days before the pool is completed. So for example, if the pool is supposed to be completed in 6 months, 5 months into the project, he's going to contact the actual buyer. So in other words, he's hoping that when he contacts the buyer, they've recovered, and now we can get them at that point again where they're ready to make another decision. In other words, he's going to incorporate a follow-up on the upsell into his system, into his process, because he understands decision fatigue. Now, by the way, what's the right number? I don't know. It could be, 2 months before. If it just started, it could be 2 months after. So let's talk about this for a while, because this is important. Like, what's the right time frame? Let's talk about the right time frame. Now, I want you to think of this as an upselling process, right? So, I want you to think about your product or service. You've just closed the deal. Remember, we're on the topic of upselling. You've just closed the deal. Just nailed it, you closed it, right? That's right here. So you got X dollars for that, whatever it may be, right? You got X dollars for that. Now, my question to you is, when should we approach the customer again? And when should we highlight that? Like, when should we go back to the customer and talk to them about another deal or about another product? And all of a sudden, you start kind of understanding that if they've made a decision here, now their decision fatigue is low, whatever that time frame is. When do we go back and talk to them again? Now, if you're not following me or you're having a hard time with this, let me give you an example. Let me go back to the pool industry. Let me give you an example. You sell the pool right here, right? That's when you sell the pool, right? Let me go full screen so you can see this. This is important. So now you sell the pool, right? You sold the pool for $120,000. Let's say you're in the pool industry, right? You sold the pool. Now, what you can then do, let's say that to build a pool, well, today it's a little longer because of what's going on with the supply chain, but let's say it's 8 months to build this pool, right? So let's put the 8-month marker right here. Let's call that 8 months, right? Now, they've made a decision to what? Buy the pool. Now you know that there's going to be an opportunity to do some pre-planning, right? In other words, when everything starts arriving, the material starts arriving. So maybe there's a pre-construction, I'll call it just pre-construct. Right before you start building, that might be another time where you visit the customer, right? So now, during the pre-construction phase, you can visit the customer. This is important. And this, I'm telling you, this works if you can figure out how to make it work for your product or service. So when you go there, all the equipment's been delivered, right? All the material's been delivered, you're ready to start building. So that's pre-construction, right? Great. So that's another time to begin to mention certain things to the customer. By the way, in later chapters, we're going to talk about how to use anchoring and mentioning things to really condition people for an upsell. But we'll do that later. For now, I just want you to focus on time frame. Now, so pre-construction, we can visit the customer again. We got another excuse to visit the customer. Now, as we're building, we're getting close to 8 months here, right? As we're building, there's going to be a period right here, and it's almost like pre-final completion. In other words, the pool's almost done. Let's call this 7 months right here. Let's call this 7 months. Well, guess what? The salesperson can now show up at the 7-month mark. Just to what? Maybe say, you know what, we're about to finish your pool. Here's what I think you might want to think about. Now remember, because this much time has passed, let's say 7 months, again, the person is recovered from decision fatigue. So they might be open to suggestions. Put yourself in this position. You bought a pool in January, right? They start building it in May or June, right in the middle of the year, right? They're spending 2 months building this. Well, first of all, when they finish it in June, the salesperson visits you again. And now they start talking about, are you excited about your pool? You got the materials out there. We're going to start building. By the way, I noticed that you didn't include this. Is it something you want to think about or maybe want to include? We could always add that on. And the customer goes, no, not really. I think we're good with what we got. That's fine. Now you move further down, and now everything's being built. The hole is dug, the cement is laid, the tile is laid up. Everything is starting, you're starting to see the pool. And you're a month away from completion, the salesperson lands again. Hey, by the way, how do you like the way everything's coming out? Oh, it's wonderful. It's beautiful. I love the pool there. I love the fire pit over there. I really love the extra trees you had it here for privacy. And the salesperson says, you know, I was looking at your plan, and I thought, you know what, as we're finishing up, we're completing this, here's a couple of things I think you should consider that would really make this backyard look beautiful. So there's another opportunity to upsell. But again, keep in mind that decision fatigue is dropped. In other words, the person's fresh because they're now seeing the pool, right? So there's an opportunity to upsell. Now, then there's completion. That's right here. Now, when they've completed the pool, that's another opportunity to go back in there because decision fatigue after a month has dropped again maybe, and they're ready to actually listen. You finish the pool up, and the buyer might actually say to you, you know what, I wish we would do that. Remember you mentioned that during this visit that we should include ABC? I think now that the pool is complete, I can see what you were saying. I want to go ahead and add that as well. Great. Do that. Now, you also know that once the pool is complete, you're going to come back a month or 2 months later just to see on the maintenance side, just to make sure everything's working beautifully. Another opportunity to upsell. Here's what I'm trying to highlight if you haven't gotten it already. Selling something one time is one thing, but then we have to think about what other points in time can we use to approach the customer again to sell some add-ons. Now, here's what you don't see, and you don't see most people talking about this, if anybody in sales, is that we don't program the follow-ups for the upsell. We program follow-ups to get referrals, but we don't program follow-ups to do upselling. In this case, we can program 1, 2, 3, maybe 4. 4 times we can go back and talk to the customer. But the interesting thing is the time between the actual visits. Again, decision fatigue is high right here. Don't want to make any more decisions. But after a month or so, it might die down a little bit. They're ready to make some new decisions, right? So decision fatigue, maybe you hit here, you can only sell them so much. And then again, it declines. You start to get the idea. It goes up, it declines. What we're giving them is time to breathe. What if you can program into your CRM when those moments should be? And you can define them, right? After it's sold, pre-build, right? Pre-completion, at completion, post-completion. So these could be like 4 markers, 4 indicators, 4 time periods that you can program in when to actually go back and visit with your customer. So keep that in mind. It's a powerful tool because you're combining, 1, decision fatigue, understanding how it works, and then upselling, but planned upselling throughout the process. Now, here are some cues when somebody's tired. Here are what I call decision fatigue cues. And when you start hearing or seeing these things, that's when you know somebody's tired. So I thought I'd just highlight some of these things. Some of them are obvious. Like, for example, if you really listen to somebody's language, their verbal skill, they start, they'll start saying, these choices are overwhelming. That's when you know it's too much information. Just show me the top 3. I don't want to see all that. Just show me the top 3. Another indication they're tired, right? Too many choices to pick from. Victor, can you just narrow it down for me? Or, can you repeat which one is better again? I didn't get that. These are cues that they're tired. That either that or you need to simplify it, but they're usually indications that you're tired. Look at the body language as well. For example, less eye contact. When people get tired, they just start they just start looking away. They don't even start looking, they just look away. Another thing could be they get distracted with other things. What's that over there? Has nothing to do with what you're selling, but they start asking about other things. That's another indication that they've lost interest in the buying process. They start fidgeting in their chair when they're standing. They start shifting their weight. These are just indications that they're getting tired of making decisions. What should you do at that point? Again, get to the close. Begin to just wrap it up and just get an agreement in place. In other words, get that first order in. And then, again, my challenge to you as part of the process is build into your CRM those follow-ups to do the upselling. Now, I want to give you one more example before I wrap up in terms of decision fatigue and how it can help you or hurt you if you don't know what you're doing. Think about the example I gave you with the judge and how timing is everything. Now I'm going to show you why that study made sense to me. I think about a year and a half ago, I read a book by Daniel Pink called When. And I can't do the book justice. I highly recommend it if you're into time management and want to find ways to be more creative and get more done. I would recommend the book, again, by Daniel Pink called When. And in there, I'm giving you the short version. He did this study on circadian rhythms. It's, in other words, when we're more focused, when we're not focused, when we're alert, when we're tired. And he came up with this rhythm. He says, pretty much everybody has this rhythm. The majority of people have this rhythm, right? If you look at the time frame at the bottom, the time slots, right? Everybody kind of has this circadian rhythm, right? And what he found out in the morning, right? You're like at peak, right? Most people between 7 a.m. and almost 11, 12 p.m., midday, you're like at peak. Like your attention level is like whoosh, focused in. I don't know about you, but between 5 and 7 a.m., I'm just like wham. I'm just like on, right? And then midday kicks in, and then people start dying after lunch. You know what I mean? You start getting tired after lunch. He calls that the trough. You start just going down. The energy's not there. You're not, you're just tired. You're just doing basic things. You're just tired. And then something happens after 5 o'clock or a little before, your energy kicks in. There's this recovery period. And what he highlighted was during these 3 periods in the day for the majority of people, here's what you should do. And this ties into decision fatigue. 1, in the morning, when you're peak, that's when you should do your focused or analytical work. That's when you should do your high concentration work because you're fresh, you're ready, you're focused, right? Then what happens midday, because you're in the trough and you're going down, what he says is that's when you do what he calls the administrative work. The administrative work is just, the brain dead work. The stuff, fill out this report, generate this report, fill out this information in the CRM, whatever it may be, you do the administrative work. And then in the evening, you do what he calls your creative or insightful work. Now, this ties into the study with the judges and the prisoner, right? If you were seen in the morning, that person's circadian rhythms were up. But if you saw them in the afternoon, they're tired, so they're making worse decisions. What does this mean to you is when you're trying to talk to a customer, when you're trying to upsell them, when you're doing those meetings, hitting those milestones to try to do the upselling, try to schedule the majority of your meetings for the morning. They'll have more energy and they'll be less tired. And that is what you want. So if we can understand decision fatigue, is that the customer gets tired of making decisions. That's the big definition. Customer gets tired of making decisions. Then we have to leave them alone for a while so they can have this recovery period. That means their decision fatigue goes down. They're not as tired. And when they're not as tired, they're more likely to want to make a buy decision on the upsell with you. So our job is to figure out how to time those things. When you're prospecting, again, you want to do it in the morning because everybody's fresh. But when you're upselling, you really want to time your meetings to be more in the morning if you want to get some good upsell deals going. So two big points here. One, people get tired of making decisions. Number two, and this is the big one, in your sales cadence, in your sales process, have you included steps for, when you look at your cadence, have you included steps for not only following up on referrals, but following up on upsells? And as I talk about in the book, there's a big point I make in the book, and that is you can increase your sales by up to 30%. Listen to me. 30% by upselling to your existing clients. The original title of my book, Mastering the Upsell, and I don't think I've ever mentioned this before, the original title was Upselling is the New Prospecting. Let me say that again. Upselling is the new prospecting. Because instead of trying to go out and get new customers, why don't we just prospect with our existing customers? In other words, yes, get referrals, but why not try to sell them up to 30% more? That's a much easier deal. When we talk about the sales velocity in the Sales Velocity Academy, one of the big things that drives your sales velocity is shortening the sales cycle. So if we can shorten the sales cycle, we can sell more faster. Well, think about it. If they've already bought from you, you have access to them. And because you have access to them, you've already shortened the sales cycle because it's not about trying to get to know them and setting up a meeting. And if you've done a great job for them, you've built the credibility, that means decisions are going to be faster, which means the sales cycle continues to get smaller and your sales velocity continues to go up. And that is all I want to say on decision fatigue. And here are the big takeaways. One, let's go big screen here. One, sales are lost due to decision fatigue, and people who don't understand decision fatigue are leaving money on the table. Think about the pool example. Number two, learn to detect the cues when somebody is getting tired. And when they're getting tired, lock it down, move on, just sign the contract. Implement a follow-up strategy, upsell calls that you're going to make as part of your cadence in your sales process. Again, if you really ask people, I've not seen one. Listen to me, I have not seen one sales process that incorporates an upselling funnel through it. In other words, there's no upselling steps after the sale has been sold, right? And last but not least, time your meetings. Again, if you're having them in the morning before noon, they're always going to be more receptive to your actual sales or upsell in this case. And again, check out the book. You know the deal. I don't need to explain that. If you haven't bought it, go buy it. It's a great book, and I'll take questions now. How's that? I'll go full screen. All right. I see a lot of stuff scrolling over here, man, so I'll take questions. Let me see. All right. So let me go back to the top of this thing. Let me see. I got that. Waiting for my book. Jay says, I notice decision fatigue when people buy computers from us. Yeah, I believe that, Jay. Doug Lehman, visualize the case study. Good content. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. Fonseca, the man who designs great suits. It would be interesting to know what time Red got paroled in Shawshank Redemption. I love that. That's funny. I actually get that one. How long should the recovery time be? Days or hours? That's a good question. I don't know, Jay. I don't have any data on that, so I would be guessing. In Michael's example, and this is a true story, by the way. That's why it's in the book. We talked about, there's closing the deal, there's pre-construction, there's pre-completion, and then we said there's completion and there's post-completion, and that's kind of how we scheduled it out. And because those dates are not fixed because you don't know if materials are going to be delayed. Again, given the supply chain issues today, it's hard to determine how many days that is. It's not in hours, it's in days. And so it's really more of a scheduling thing. But if you can work with product managers or project managers and kind of sales work hand in hand, you can probably figure that out. And by the way, that's another course in and of itself. How do you use your project managers, your construction people who are in the house or at the house putting this together? How do you teach them how to begin mentioning things so that the salesperson can upsell more? That's another topic, and I've had that discussion before, so it's a great topic. How does that correlate to prospecting? So when we think about prospecting, phone sake, Mark, is that we always think that prospecting is actually going out and getting new business. I'm saying prospecting could be going after existing business, and I would consider this part of a prospecting process. Most people don't think about it that way, but to me, upselling is going back to your prospect, in this case your customer now, and saying, what else can I sell you, and increasing the wallet share. So I think it's part of prospecting. It's just, again, that's why the original title was Upselling is the New Prospecting, because you're prospecting within your existing customer base. I hope I answered that, man. I think I got that question already. Terry Young, preach. I'm doing my best here, man. My man Jay again. Victor, for computers, how long should the recovery time be after they receive the computers? Call to ask them, how are the computers working? So for example, if I'm selling a single computer, it could be, I would give them a week just to kind of, because they're going to install software. You don't want to get a call in a day. I'm still installing the software. I'm still playing with it. I'm still trying to get used to whatever it is. If I'm thinking of me, if I bought a Macintosh and you called me that same day or the next day, I'd be like, I haven't unboxed it yet because I've been too busy. But I think it's okay to call within a few days, 3 or 4 days, maybe a week, and just, say, hey, how's it going? Just want to stop by. That would be my first call. I would put that into cadence. And then I could start mentioning things there, like things I would upsell them. If you're selling a network, for example, of computers, not just one computer, you're selling a network of computers, well, you want to talk to the operations, the CIO or the COO and say, I'm going to call you back in a week. Let's get back and talk about it. I want to make sure everything's set up. And then you can program, like insurance companies do, every year to have a review of the system. In your case, as a computer, if I was selling computers, I said, I'll be back in 3 months just to see how they're working and to see if there's anything else we can talk about or that you might need. You can figure out your own cadence and then you can determine whether it's too long or too short. I don't have numbers for, how long it should be, Jay, so I'm just, like you, I'm just guessing depending on the industry. Hey, Vic, how to stay motivated in a slump. Motivation is tough for everybody, by the way, so it's, all I know is I live by this creed. Here it comes, Victor, Tocayo. Motion creates emotion. Motion creates emotion. What do I mean by that? When you're in a slump, do something. Put yourself in motion. Do something. And then I remember I was listening to Jordan Peterson, the guy who wrote the 12 Rules for Life, and he was being interviewed by Joe Rogan. He said something interesting. He said when people aren't motivated, it's because they see something as a barrier too high. The goal is too far away. And he says, well, instead of raising your goals, right? Because people always say, what you got to do is you got to raise your goals and you got to strive for them. Jordan Peterson says, no, you lower your goals. Rogan was like, what do you mean you lower your goals? You lower your goals. You lower them to the point where you can step right over it. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So first I said, Victor, motion creates emotion. So you got to put yourself in motion. You got to start doing something. And you're saying, well, Victor, I'm not motivated. I said, okay, well, let's just start out, for example. Let's say, I say, all right, start reading a book, right? Mastering the Upsell. You say, I don't want to read a book, Victor. I said, well, I don't want you to read the whole book. I said, what can you do in a day? You say, I don't know. I said, why don't you just read 5 pages a day? You said, Victor, I can't do 5 pages. That's just too much. I know I'm not going to do it. How about 3 pages? You go, no, Victor, I just can't do it. You say, Victor, I say 2 pages, 1 page. You say, yeah, I can do 1 page. Okay, just do 1 page. That's it, just 1 page a day, because you can do that. Now, you know what's going to happen, right, Victor? You put yourself in motion with 1 book, right? You read 1 page, and that is going to change your state of mind. That's your emotional part. It'll change your state of mind. When you read something or you listen to a podcast on content, it always changes your state of mind. So motion, putting yourself in motion, changes your emotion, and that emotion feeds into your motion, because then you want to do more. Because you think you're really just going to read 1 page, Victor? No, you're probably going to read 2 pages, maybe 3. And now, as you're learning, your mindset, your emotional piece kicks in, and now you want to do something else. And it just changes your mindset. So if you're stuck, if you're in that slump, find a way to put yourself in motion. Now, if you don't want to read a book, let's do a podcast. You want to listen to a podcast? Watch a video on YouTube. I don't know, Victor, they're just too long, the videos. How long are they? 15 minutes. Well, just watch 10 minutes. That's too long. Watch 3 minutes. That's too long. 2 minutes. Can you do 2 minutes? Yeah, I can do 2 minutes. All right, do 2 minutes. Put yourself in motion, man, okay? Hopefully that helps a little bit. Inkle John, let me see what you got. Can this be related to information asymmetry? A true student of the game. A true student of the game right here. Because not all the time clients can think what are the things they may need in the future. How do you tie it down to avoid information overload? So 2 things. For those of you who don't know what information asymmetry is, great question. Man, Inkle John, you're in the house, man. Information asymmetry, I always describe it like this. This is the salesperson, and this is the consumer, right? I'll put a big C here. Now, the height relates to how much information they know, right? Height relates to information. So let me just move this here so everybody can see that. So in other words, the salesperson has high information, but this person right here has this much information, right? And what happens is this gap, this knowledge gap between here and here is information asymmetry. What does that mean? You ever talk to somebody who knows, like, for example, insurance, right? This is the insurance salesperson. This is me trying to understand insurance. And the person starts talking, and you're like, they start throwing out terms and everything else. And you're like, I'm not understanding. That's information asymmetry. They know more than you. And because they know more than you, you don't feel comfortable. You don't have any confidence in your decision-making ability. So you'll just say, it sounds all right, but yeah, let me think about it. That's information asymmetry. When we talk about selling and reducing information asymmetry, your job as a salesperson is to simplify the language so you can raise them up. In other words, if I simplify the language and I can increase your ability to understand, I close that information gap. So that's what information asymmetry is. Simplification of content is always a good way to reduce cognitive loading, which leads to decision fatigue. So simply said, simplify your content. If you notice, if you're reading my book, you'll note I don't use a lot of big words. Not very complicated concepts. They're just very simple and crisp. Why? Because that's how my brain works. I want to simplify things. So what I try to do is simplify things for the average reader. Like when Inkle John just said, information asymmetry. What does that mean? It's a complicated term, right? I just simplified it. It's when this person knows this much and you know this much. That's information asymmetry. So your job is to simplify it and help them understand, and you close that gap. That's how you simplify. When you do that, people go, oh, okay, I get that. And that's how you reduce the symmetry and then also reduce cognitive loading, again, which makes people want to listen more because they're understanding. We shut down when we just don't understand. So anyway, Reckless Civic says, very informative, truly appreciate it. Thank you very much for hanging out. A couple more that I'm out of here. How would you upsell less ticket items, meaning something below $1,000? What time would you allow? How would you upsell less ticket items, meaning something below $1,000? What I've seen Pavlo, and by the way, this is me guessing, okay? So this is me, my finger in the wind. What I've seen people do with, I'll call them, they're not low, I mean, $1,000 is not a low ticket item, but I know what you mean, compared to $50,000, $80,000, right? What I've seen is that the best time to upsell on a low ticket item is actually almost immediately, like a very short window, right? One would say almost immediately, if not less than 24 hours. Why? Because there's a different psychology going on here. So let me kind of highlight what might be going on. So you sold, let's say you sold something that was $700, right? And now you want to upsell them on $1,500, right? So they've already signed this, they've given you the credit card, right? It's my credit card right there. They've given you a credit card, you got the $700, right? Then if I moved and said, for $300 more, just $300 more, you can also get A, B, C, D, right? And so now you've already sold the $700. When you're doing an upsell, you're selling only $300, right? And so this works well in a short time period. You see this a lot with car dealerships, right? You buy the car, you buy this, you buy that. You know what? For another $300, we can add this option in. You're like, sure. Why? Because this number, as a percentage of this number, in this case, is less than half. right? When you buy a car that's $50,000 and somebody says, hey, for $500 more, you can get some nice carpets, you go what? Sure, because it's like, what is it, 1%, whatever it is? It's so small compared to the original price. The big decision was already made. So upselling them a small amount is not hard to do. That's why I would do this upsell almost immediately. Now, let's take it the other way. You sold them $700. Now you're trying to sell them $1,500. Now I would give it more time because I have to absorb the blow. And now you want me to double that? That would be hard to do. So it depends on which way you're going with the pricing. If it's a small increase, do it as soon as you can. If it's to a larger increase, you have to let them almost absorb the punch or socialize this and then come back at them again. So I would give that more time. I don't know what that time period would be, but a week, 2 weeks, something like that. You know what I mean? Something like that. All right, we got Jim Duffy. Do you use any phone dialers in your process? No, but I know a lot of people who do. The one that I got a coaching client, they use Connect and Sell, and they live and die by Connect and Sell. And there's a lot of great companies out there, by the way, who have these dialers. So they use Connect and Sell. It really depends on the type of business you're running. But again, I won't disclose his number, but as you can imagine, the call to connect rates are very low. But when he does connect, and so he lives and dies by it. So I don't use that. Our strategy here, Jim, is we do a lot of inbound marketing. In other words, we use a lot of gravitational marketing, try to pull people in through live streams, through YouTube channels, the podcast. We pull people in as opposed to doing a lot of outbound. So we do mostly inbound. So hopefully that answers your question. You got it? Really like Jordan Peterson. I do also, man. And yeah, motion creates emotion. Get yourself in motion. Your book came right on time. I've implemented the decoy strategy for a new offer I'm rolling out. Looking forward to the results. Yeah, I want to hear the results. Had more clarity when setting the pricing. Yeah, the decoy pricing strategy in the book is just, I think that's just, there's so many things I love about. I'm not saying this because it's my book, but man, there's like some really useful stuff in here. When I was putting this together, I curated it for like stuff that you can really use. Some sales books, they're so up here, in theory, you can't really use them. And so there's a lot of tactical stuff in the book, the decoy pricing, the endowment, even understanding what we talked about tonight, this decision fatigue, just understanding that concept and determining when the follow-up time frames or time periods are is going to be a game changer in a lot of cases. So yeah. He says you should try to compete with what you were yesterday. That is correct. He says don't compete with others, compete with who you were yesterday. And it's just the little nuggets that he has of wisdom that you go, like the one about lowering the goal. He says don't try to, people say you won't set a goal that's going to make you stretch. He's like, no, set a goal that you know you can walk over, step over, and that builds this mental momentum for you to keep going. And that to me was like a paradigm shift. I was like, oh, I love that. Totally going against the grain, man. So Victor says, thank you very much. Very helpful. Thank you for being here. Again, Ronald Reagan, the great communicator, I think Ronald Reagan is right up there. The keep it simple principle, right? I love it right there. Zoran. Zoran. I'm just going Zoran. Great presentation, Victor. Should the upsell be carried out by the sales exec or by the account manager? Thoughts on this, please. Great question. I mean, this is a really good question. I think the answer is it could be both. I mean, I'm going to try to give you an answer. I'm not trying to cop out. I'm going to give you an answer. So let's take the pool industry example, right? The pool industry. So I'm the sales guy. I sold the pool, right? So they see me. I sold the pool, right? Now, on a day-to-day basis, they're going to see the construction people, the project manager is going to be on site, not every day, but they're going to see the project manager all the time. So this is where if we can integrate a project manager to kind of begin to mention things. Hey, I noticed that in this pool, you decided not to do this. Is there a reason why? And begin to mention things. And so it's almost like a combination, 1-2, right? The sales guy comes in, he tries to do the upselling, doesn't work. The project guy's there on site, he begins to mention things. And then the project manager communicates to the sales guy, hey, I mentioned this to the customer today, and they seemed a little interested. maybe you should go back and have a conversation. So now the sales guy comes in and then has that conversation. When it comes to like account managers or sales exec, it's almost like the same thing. The trick, Zoran, is getting them to work like this. The person who owns the account should actually run the account, do a lot of the communication. I think when I worked as an engineer, as an application engineer, I always worked with the salesperson, right? Application engineer worked with the salesperson. Salesperson got us into the account. I helped with the presentation and the demos, right? And it was always interesting is that the technical people always wanted to talk to me. They didn't want to talk to the salesperson, right? Because they're like, he's just going to try to sell me something. But they would like on the side say, hey, Victor, your sales guy mentioned this. Do I really need that? And I go, here's what I would do. Here's what you need. And then I would tell the salesperson this on the side, right? So that I made sure that we were always handling. I would never bring up pricing because I said, he goes, well, how much would that cost us, Victor? I said, you're going to have to talk to the sales guy. But I think if it's in your budget, I think you should put that in there. And they go, okay, well, let me go back and talk to the sales guy. That way I never stepped on the salesperson's feet because there should be one point of contact and there's only one person that gives out pricing, Zoran. So let me know if I answered your question. I know it was a long-winded answer. Thank you very much. I appreciate the compliment. I'd like to show you my outbound process. Cool. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different processes out there. Mr. International, what do you do if you made a contract, got it signed, then forgot to include things in it that I would need for potential future upselling? Yeah, I think you still go back. You signed the deal, you forgot to include things in that I would need for potential future upselling. In other words, you didn't include certain things that would allow you to leverage the upsell. I can imagine. I've done that, by the way. I've done that. Like if I'd sold them this, then I could come back and layer this, but I didn't sell them this, so therefore, I think I would always present it almost as a new product. Those are always tough. So my thing is, you upsell them on the stuff you forgot to put in there. You know, it's a tough one. But again, I always go back to, if it's a value to the customer and they really need it, then you just come back with that attitude and say, look, I forgot to put this in here. This is something I know that you need to be having, you need to put in there. And they're going to say, well, it's just not in the budget. We've already signed the deal. I said, I know we signed the deal. I said, I get that. I said, but I want to highlight that this is something I think you'll need. And if you can find the extra dollars or something like that, let's try to find a way to make this work. There were times where I forgot to put something in. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll put it in. We're going to bolt it in, right? And then use it for 3 months. And if you see the value in 3 months, I'm going to invoice you for that item. How's that for fair? And if you don't see the value, I'll just pull it right back out. And they go, they didn't say yes all the time, but it was 50-50, you know? So try that. That's a tough one, though. That's a tough one. Pablo, perfect. You're very welcome, man. Thank you. I book 60 meetings a month with litigation attorneys. I'd like to show you how. By the way, don't show me. And by the way, the guy I work with, he does attorneys only. So it's funny that you said that, Jim. He does attorneys only. And he's very specific. And again, I don't want to give you his information in terms of what he does, but that's his market. He does attorneys only. And I think your numbers are about right. You know, I don't know how you do it, but his numbers are really good. And what I did was, so I've been coaching him for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, and we rewrote the scripts, rewrote, you know, what to say, how to say it, how to frame things. And so his numbers are looking very, very good. And I know your next question is, Victor, are you taking coaching clients? The answer is no, unfortunately. My time is really booked. Anyway, what's this one? I really like your mojo. You are a real sales guy that carried a bag. Oh, I carried a bag. I carried the engineering bag first and then graduated to account manager, then graduated. By the way, I went into account management, did account management, moved up to director of sales, and then I actually went back into product management, and I managed a software team because I wanted to learn how to run a P&L. And I did that for almost 2 years, and then I went back into the field again, and then moved, cut my teeth on selling. And Jim, if you're kind of old school, maybe I'm a little older, but if you're like old school, man, we did it the hard way, right? We had the big projector, and you're lugging stuff around, going international, so that was tough, man. Oh, I'm just going to call you O. Good, man. That's a tough name. Abchodovani. I think I got it, man. Let me know where you're from. Oh, Zoran says, great answer, thank you. I like the project or account manager discussing text aspects and then the salesperson eventually making sense of the value. Yes, bingo, that's it. And so again, always keep only one face that deals with pricing. Like that, there's never any confusing. There's never nobody stepping on each other. But the more you can get people to like talk to each other about what's going on the upsell, the better. Also keep this in mind. And I think a lot of managers, Zoran, fall short on this, is that you need to incentivize the upsell. That's one. Incentivize the upsell with the actual salesperson. But you'd also, in the compensation plan, incentivize the upsell with, I'll call, the collaborators. In other words, if you have two people supporting the salesperson, let them know if the salesperson hits their number, we got a little bonus for you guys, and you guys get to share in some of that success. And it doesn't have to be a lot of money, a big percentage point, but just a little bit, just a taste of it. And that creates this collaborative environment. And I see a lot of companies who simply don't think about the upsell compensation. And I think, and I got to check if I put it in this book. Hold on, just wait up, Zoran. I just want to make sure I put it in there. So chapter 16 in the book, I talk about compensating the upsell, because I think that's an important strategy. So compensate the upsell not just for your salespeople, but anybody within that micro team, right? We'll call it that agile sprint team. So if you got two people supporting that salesperson, say, look, if you help the salesperson hit the number, then you know what? You're going to get a little taste of that commission, right? And the two people are going to be, all right, how do we do that? And then all of a sudden you got full collaboration. So keep that in mind. Forensic accountants, nice market, really nice market. I like that, Jim. Hola, Victor Antonio, loving this. Gracias. Dora Maria, I know you. It's been a long time. Wow, it's been a long time. I use the attorney's bio in my process. I see you were second chair on the John Gotti Trail. I love it. If you get a chance, reach out. Jim Duff, President of Litigation Connection. I'm on LinkedIn. There you go, man. Okay, done trolling you. You are terrific. That's okay, man. It's all good, man. We're all here to kind of connect anyway. So anyway, I hope you found this interesting today. And like I said, if you haven't gotten the book, Mastering the Upsell, go get the book. It's all scribbled up here. And I will be, like I said, I'll be covering each of these chapters. And what I'm hoping to do is add a little flavor. Every time I cover each of these chapters is I want to add a little flavor for you guys and just a little more than what's in the actual book. And anyway, leave me some feedback on the actual book. Leave me some feedback in the comments if you like what I'm doing, how I'm doing, any suggestions to make it better. I would appreciate it. And got one more here, then I'll end this. Tech team will get a taste commission without being in sales. Nice idea. Yeah, it is. It works. And on that note, folks, have a great night, or for some of you, have a great morning.